Hello friends, welcome to Career Plot. In this session, we are going to understand the consumer decision making process. What is consumer decision making process? Every consumer, every user, you, your friends, I take decisions within 5 minutes to maybe days and months to buy certain products. What is the rationale behind buying those products? What goes on in our mind when we buy those products? This is what we are going to cover in this session. What customers think, what are the factors which influence the customer's decision-making process, and what is the cycle he goes through. So we will discuss all this in detail. This is very, very important for us to understand because when we understand the psychology of the consumer, this is where we can do a very good strategy about marketing a product. So this depends on how well you understand your consumer base. Every marketing professional has to understand his consumer very well, the psyche behind the consumer, what he thinks, what he doesn't think, what he likes, what he doesn't like. If you understand your customer very well, if you understand your consumer very well, your strategies are bound to work. They will bound to succeed completely. So let's look at the influencing factors which influence customers' decision making for the first time. So when people buy anything, there are various factors at play. So there are three main categories which we put the factors in. One is called situational influence factor. The second factor is called psychological influence factor. The third is socio and cultural influence factor. So let's say I want to buy some product. The first factor which comes into play is my situational influence. What kind of situation I am in, what time of place it is. And this is why you will look at all those festive sales come in when it's a Diwali time or Eid time or Holi time, New Year, Christmas. This is the time when a lot of sales happen. This is the time when a lot of people buy things for gifting, for their own house, for renovating their house. Lot of shopping happens that time. So this is situational influence, that there's a festival season going on, there's a particular time of the year, or there's a need for that product in the market right now, or I need it. Situational can be personal too. For example, I need to buy a car because I'm troubled in my life. I need to use a four-wheeler because I can't bear any more rains, and I do not like my two-wheeler because it goes always into the sides or it is on the left side always. So I always go for situational purchases. So this is one of the most influencing decision-making points because this describes the need of the product, or this describes why we are doing it in this case. So this is one of the first factors. It is where we kick off the purchasing behavior. Then the psychological influence comes in, the perception or the motivation factors. For example, perception can be very, very simple. I like to purchase from Amazon better than Flipkart. The reason being, I perceive that Amazon's delivery process is very, very smooth. Even if they have certain failures, I choose to ignore them. And definitely I have made my perception that Amazon is much, much better than Flipkart. Similarly, in taxi business, Uber versus Ola. People perceive that Uber is much better because they come on time, the drivers don't refuse, and there's a perception that if something goes wrong, Uber is there to take care of it. Whereas in case of Ola, a lot of perception is negative. But in your case, maybe the perception can be opposite. You might like Ola better than Uber, you might like Flipkart better than Amazon, depending on your perceptions. So perceptional is very, very psychological influence which makes an impact on the choice of the customer. And similarly, the motivations, why we buy those things, what is the motivation behind those things. So psychological things are more important. The third is the socio-cultural influence, what my friends like to do, what my friends buy. For example, a lot of people have bought iPhones because their friends had iPhones. There's a cultural point on people, right? So people in Bangalore versus people in Delhi, people in Bombay versus people in Calcutta, the areas, the society also makes a difference. For example, if a society is not does not spend too much money and they are money conservatives, the people do not spend too much money versus very spend-thrift society. That also happens around. There's a market trends which takes place in socio-cultural things. For example, if you want to use phones, you can always buy a 1000 rupees feature phone, the old Nokia phones, which if you would have remembered, the button phones, you can still make calls from them. But then there's a market trend. Everyone has moved towards the smartphones. So once you have moved towards the smartphones, everyone is purchasing smartphones. Smartphones are going cheaper because of the demand and supply, which we discussed earlier in economics. But that's how the market trends change place, and this is how consumers' behavior also change. Changing a consumer behavior for new trends is very, very complicated and very, very tough. But only large companies can do it over a long period of time because it involves a lot of money investments over a long period of time, including years, to change the consumer behavior, because changing the consumer behavior is very, very tough. One of the things which happens is, for example, I was traveling in auto for a long time until I moved to Ola and Uber, because the market trends were moving towards Ola and Uber. And I compared that auto was working out to be costlier and ineffective, and obviously it was very painful, versus Ola and Uber, which was very, very working out to be cheap and was available right at the door in my home or my office. So this is how people take consumer decisions, and these are the influencing factors. Now, after every influencing factor, there is a 5-stage process of decision making. Now, this 5-stage process of decision making can be done in 5 minutes. Let's say if I'm making an impulse purchase can be defined as a purchase which you just made it like this, and in that moment of purchasing, you just did it without thinking much. As a customer, you might be thinking, I did not do anything, but you made a purchase. But even in 1 minute or 5 minutes or months and days or years, you go through a 5-stage process of decision making. The first thing you always do is need recognition. Then you do information search. Then you do evaluation of alternatives. Then you do actual purchase. And then after the purchase, you do post-purchase experience. In this 5-stage process, the first 4 stages happen actually just before the purchase or during the purchase cycle or before the purchase, much before the purchase. The last stage happens after the purchase, and which is very, very important for any company to monitor very closely, because if post-purchase experience is not good, the customer might not come back. So let's go in detail of that part now. First is need recognition. Now, every person has to identify a need of the product. Need can be anything. I'm not saying that now we're not talking about the need which we discussed in marketing 1.0. We're talking about just I should feel that I need it. Whether I need it or not in actual way is not the valid point. So, for example, I might not need another cell phone, but I might think I need it, and this is how I recognize my need. The need recognition is done in 2 ways. For example, a functional need or a psychological need. My functional need is to own a cell phone because I need to make calls, I need to connect with my friends and colleagues and other people. But my psychological need can be buying an iPhone, right? Because I have a peer pressure or have a socio-cultural influence coming on my purchase factors. So there is a psychological need that I need it and I need that particular brand, and there is a functional need. I have it because I need that product right now for my usage. And this is how I identify my needs. Psychological need can be other than that I think I need it. For example, I already have a cell phone and I don't need another one, but I think I need it, and that's called a psychological need. Psychological needs are important for any company because that's how they can drive change of customer behavior. Now, information search. For any product which we purchase, we do a lot of search. We think that we know, or if we don't know, we inquire about it. And even if you're doing a 2-minute search or a 1-minute search, there is a search involved. Information search is means that consumers are looking for information before making a purchase. There can be an internal search, which is like they're just looking at their memory that, oh yeah, I remember from the product, or they just have some information readily available and they do it. For example, in case of cell phones, I know I'm not going to go for iPhone, I'm going to go for Android. It's just quickly I say, okay, Android phones are better, so just go for it. But I have some internal data available in my mind because of my experience, which I do it. The second type of search which happens is external search, which is data-driven search or driven by instinct. Now, external search is where we actually go and look for data. For example, when you want to buy a phone, you will go to price comparison sites, you will go to feature comparison websites, you will say Android LG versus Android Samsung versus Android Motorola. There's a huge comparison list on features, on prices, on performance, and that's a data-driven search because you're looking at every single data point to do it. Then you're looking at driven by instinct. That, as I said, for example, I want to buy Android because I don't like iPhone. Now it's driven by instinct. Now, out of which I just search for Android phones quickly and look for just quick features about it or the pricing information. But I do instinctual things that I know that 2 GB RAM or 3 GB RAM doesn't make much difference, or maybe just or a storage space of 32 GB versus 64 GB doesn't make much difference to me. So I just quickly, driven by instinct, I make those search decisions. The third important factor for information search for customer is risk analysis. That pricing comes in a very, very important play. Here, where customer does a risk that if I spend 50,000 rupees for this product, will it be worth it? If I spend it, will I regret later or not? If it is like, if I'm not able to use it properly, then will it go waste? And can I actually afford to spend that money? Because a lot of people make purchases by digging into their savings, right? So it's a hard-earned money which they are spending on. So there's a financial impact on the purchase. So every customer goes through a risk analysis. Look at the 10 rupee product. When a 10 rupee product is purchased, and maybe it's a candy or a toffee purchased by a kid, it's a big impact on his purchase decisions because for him, his total budget is 5 rupees and if a toffee is taking 1 rupee, it's a 20% of his income. So that kind of things also are done in the case of FMCG companies which are launching candies and toffees and 1 rupee product or a 50 paisa product. They think a lot about this. The second is a safety impact. Now, safety impact is whether this product is safe to use. Is it risky? Is it healthy? Is it going to spoil my health or is it going to improve my health? All these safety impacts are taken care of. Is it secure enough? Is it like my data can be stolen or not? Is it like, if my password can be safe or not? Is my data being stored nicely in a good location, or is it like open to advertisers too? So all this impact also has been analyzed by consumers. Depending on the complexity of the product and depending on the awareness of the consumer, this impact has been analyzed by consumers at all. And then definitely there are sociological, psychological and cultural influences, and the information search has been done. What particular cultures promote it. For example, a lot of cultures do not allow skirts. So girls do not buy skirts in a lot of cultures, but then in Western countries, skirts are very common. So they sell like hotcakes. They sell too much. Whereas a country like India, they sell only in tier 1 cities like Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore. But if you go to a very small town or a village, they might not be selling it. So this also impacts it. So as a marketer, let's say if you're launching any products which are not working in a particular sociological economy, or on a particular segment of customers, or cultural influence is there, heavy cultural influence is there, you should make sure that you are segmenting that market very nicely. Otherwise, your product is not going to sell. So information search is done by customers keeping that in mind, and customer behavior is driven by that. The third is evaluation of alternatives. As soon as I decided that I want to purchase something, let's say I decided an Android phone, I will look for competitive products. So I will look for all the Android products available in the market in a different price range. I know that I need certain kind of features in my phone, so I will look only for those features, and I'll look at competitive products again. It has to satisfy my need of buying the best product with the most benefits in the least of price. I hope you understand that part, because every customer doesn't want to pay high money. They want to save money, but they want everything or most of the benefits in one single product. And this is why product packaging is very, very important. Unless you package the product nicely as a complete product, it might not work. So for example, some of the products are not bought because the phone might be good, but the package was bad and it was delivered badly, so it doesn't work, right? Then once that happens, once you look at the alternative, you might be looking at aspirational products. Oh, I wanted to buy an Android phone, but why don't I buy an iPhone? I could think like that. And if I think like that, I might transition towards an iPhone purchase of a higher category, and I might spend more. But at the same time, I might look at my risk analysis also, whether I can spend that money or not. So once I look at evaluation of alternatives, I evaluate my alternatives, I actually make a decision that, okay, this is the product I'm going to buy. But I haven't still bought it. I still have to pay for it. And until I pay, I'm still making a decision. The fourth one happens is purchase. Now, when I'm about to pay, that is where, so let's say you're going online on Flipkart or Amazon or any site where you are supposed to make a payment. So you get a payment page. On payment page also, when you click pay, always every consumer, or I'll say that 99.9% people actually pause for 1 second at least to think, are they making a right decision? Once they pause, they are actually thinking that if they purchase, if they click on pay, is it going to help them in after sales experience? Is this company going to support me after the purchase? Because if they are not going to support me after the purchase, I'm not going to buy this product. A lot of products require after sales support. Cell phones or any physical product, generally 90% of the product do require after sales support, and every customer wants very good support. And if they don't expect good support, it will not work for them. So they always pause that. And a lot of customer dropouts, a lot of purchases dropout happens at this stage where people do not purchase. After selecting the product, after doing all the steps, after doing information search, after evaluating the alternatives and spending hours and days on it, they still do not click on purchase or the pay button. And this is the experience which they need to give. Now, sometimes what happens is the purchase experience also has to be seamless. You clicked on pay button, but the pay button did not work. Or it took you to another page to click another pay. Number of steps added, and your payment cycle is going to decline. A lot of people are going to drop at every step. So that's why ease of payment happens. That's why you look in the examples in the market today that everyone is having a single click checkout. Store your credit card information with us and just click on checkout button and the purchase is done. Why they do that is just because people should have a single checkout experience by clicking on pay and it gets paid. Anything in between and it's going to drop out the rates. And at every step, there is at least 5 to 10% or 20% dropouts happening for any customers. So think of that 100 customers actually tried the need of the product. 80 customers actually decided after information search. There are about 60 people who actually did the evaluation of alternatives and wanted to buy. Only at purchase stage, only 40 people reached. And after purchase, there'll be at purchase only 20 people actually clicked because only 20% people drop out anyway. So out of 100, only 20 people actually clicked on purchase. 80 people were lost. Think of the money spent on that campaign. Every marketing professional has to increase this number from 20 to 30 to 40 to 50. And even if they touch 50%, they'll be very, very happy persons. So purchase is very, very important decision. Now, after the purchase is done, a customer gets the product. Now, that all depends on how the post-sale experience is or post-purchase experience is. Most of the companies, after-sale service has to be really good. And this is one of the decisions when you buy fridge or refrigerators, when you buy washing machines, when you buy cell phones, you buy all the devices or air conditioners. This is where you look at, how is this company going to provide me after sales service or not? In certain areas, you will say, hey, IFB for washing machines is good in Bangalore, but I'm not in Delhi. But for washing machines, Whirlpool is good in Delhi and not in IFB. And all this combinations you'll try to formulate and then say, let's decide on after sales service and after sales support, because this is very, very important to support a product. If the product has to be delivered also nicely, if the product is not delivered, you're not going to return to the customer, to the company again. So product experience after the purchase is very important for every company if they want the customer back onto their business. Now, there are very few companies in the world who sell only once. I don't know any company who sells only once to one person and never sells it again, because that company doesn't exist, as the world is limited, right? There are only 7 billion people on earth. In India, there are only 1.2 billion people, and you cannot reach out to everyone. That means you're reaching out to only 100 million people in a lifetime of 10 years of a company. You can't sell only once to one person. You have to sell it again. If you want to sell again, you have to have an awesome post-purchase experience. To define that post-purchase experience, marketing professionals work a lot on customer behavior. They look at a lot of data which we understood in statistical terms. They do the analysis and feedback to product teams how to improve that part. The only thing they are trying to promote or prevent, the only thing they are trying to prevent is called buyer's remorse. The buyer's remorse is after purchasing, a customer or a buyer thinks he has wasted his money or he lost his time. That is something which you should avoid, because if a buyer's remorse happens, he's going to keep your product, but he's not going to promote it. He's not going to recommend your product to anyone else. That means your word of mouth publicity will go zero, will go down, and your product will die eventually. Buyer's remorse is something which everyone should avoid. More than 10% buyer's remorse or more than 5% buyer's remorse is very, very dangerous for any company. Yes, there will be buyer's remorse in every company. There will be buyer's remorse in every product. There will be, out of 100 people, there will be 1 or 2 people who do not like it. Or maybe there will be, out of 100, there will be 5 people who will not like it. But 95% people should like it, or at least should have an opinion about it. In that sense, buyer's remorse should not happen. Buyer's remorse is makes a company decline their product, and they have to evaluate again and they have to evolve again. So in this session, we learned about consumer behavior process. I hope you understood how a customer behavior or a consumer decision-making process can impact your product life cycle and can impact your revenues and sales and your marketing strategies. So for that, we learned factors that influence the consumers in their decisions. We learned the 5-stage process of decision making, which included need recognition, information search, the evaluation of alternatives, purchase experience and purchase decision, and the post-purchase experience. This sums up the whole session on consumer decision making process. Thank you.